Hello and welcome to the Slaw Sports Show. I'm your host, Cole Noble, aka Slaw, and today we are here for the Slaw Sports Show. It is Friday, it is 10 o'clock, and we're back here for yet another episode. So thank you all for joining on today's show, and thank you for listening. Thank you for those tuning in on YouTube as well. And today we got a jam-packed episode featuring special guest Gray Oss, who will be joining here after our first break when we come in to the second half of today's show. But today we're going to be covering a lot of things. We got a lot to talk about in the NBA, some things to talk about in the NFL, the MLB as well. And of course, tomorrow night we have a UFC fight night going down as well. So a lot of things to talk about. And like I said, Gray will be joining us for the second part of the episode to talk about some things going down in the NBA. But to start it off, and like we always do here on the Slaw Sports Show, we always begin with Slaw's main card pick'em of the week in the UFC. We have a 4-4 record, and we're wanting to improve that record going forward. So we took a break last week. We didn't have a UFC fight night, but we have one now tomorrow night that has been officially set because Kevin Holland has signed on to go up against Marvin Vettori. So I'm excited. We finally got a fight night back in and a chance to go either positive or negative with our record. So let's go ahead and look at this fight. So it's a middleweight bout here between Holland and Vettori. And Holland, if you remember and you've been on the show for a while, we talked about Holland 3 weeks ago because Kevin Holland fought 21 days ago tomorrow against Derek Brunson and now has a chance to tie the UFC record for 21 days since having a main card. So back-to-back main cards within 21 days. So there's a lot to talk about here with Kevin Holland. Last time we saw him against Brunson, he went 5 rounds and ended up losing in a unanimous decision. It was a bad fight all around, I would say, for Kevin Holland. A lot of people were questioning his mental approach to the fight, especially toward the end of the fight, and a lot of people were kind of wondering. It seemed like Kevin Holland just decided to give up in that fight, but he's here now to make a statement to the UFC and to the fans that he didn't give up, and he's here to go again, and he's going to be going up against Marvin Vettori. So this fight was originally scheduled to go against Darren Till until he got injured and decided to pull out of the fight. So that's how we have Kevin Holland back here in the octagon tomorrow night. And so let's look at the tail of the tape for both sides. So Kevin Holland, he is 21-6 in his UFC career and he had a 4-4 record, won four straight fights going in to that Brunson fight, and ended up losing that one. So now back here on a losing streak going in here against Vettori. And then on the other side for Vettori, he is 16-3-1 in his career. So this one's going to be an interesting one. Vettori, I'm glad to see him get a fight. In 2020, he had 3 fights get changed, all out of his control. So seeing him back in is going to be fun to watch. The guy who has won 4 of his last 5 matches. The last time he lost was to Israel Adesanya back in 2018. So seeing him come back in the octagon and take on Kevin Holland is going to be fun to watch. So let's get into it deeper here. Now in this fight. So Kevin Holland is going to be the underdog tomorrow night. And you look at the stats that he's had, when he's in the octagon, 59.4% of his significant strikes he lands. That is the best in the middleweight class in the UFC. But you look on the other side with Marvin Vettori, 66.4 defense against significant strikes. So we're going up against an immovable object and an unstoppable force when you talk about landing significant strikes between these two fighters. So this one will be interesting to see what kind of goes down. And again, that 66.4 defense against significant strikes is the best among 185 pounders for Vettori. So he's got the defense side going up against him, but the offensive side, of course, is going to be Kevin Holland. And if you look back now at some other fights, of course, we already talked about Brunson going up against Kevin Holland in his last fight. What about Marvin Vettori? His last fight, he went up against Jack Hermansson, and in that fight was incredible. He landed 164 significant strikes in 5 rounds, which set a UFC middleweight record in his last fight. So while the offense is there for Kevin Holland, it's also there for Vettori, and he has that defensive side going with him as well. And again, this is a big fight, in my opinion, for Vettori. You talk about how Kevin Holland lost in the unanimous decision in 5 rounds against Derek Brunson just 3 weeks ago. Derek Brunson's the number 4 ranked fighter in his class, and it's going to be a convincing win here for Vettori. Could be huge in the entire UFC, especially in the middleweight division, because how Kevin Holland went to the decision against the number 4 ranked fighter in the class. If Vettori can get a good win here tomorrow night, and an easy-handedly win against Kevin Holland, that says a lot about him going forward in the sport and in this weight class. So that's the kind of way I'm leaning towards here. Just a statement win is what Vettori needs. And on the flip side, Kevin Holland, he fought just 21 days ago. So when I look at this and I lean towards the Slaw pick'em of the week for this fight, I'm leaning towards Vettori. After what I've seen from Holland, and yes, he's got the better record. Yes, he's been a more proven fighter in the octagon. But in my opinion, I'm going to take the guy who's favored in tomorrow's fight, and I'm going to go with Vettori by decision or by submission. And because Vettori's just capable of striking. He's capable, we saw that, the 164 significant strikes against Hermansson. And I think we're going to see it tomorrow night, of course, against Kevin Holland as well. And just he's capable of striking him down, and that's something that really struggled for Kevin Holland when he took on Brunson, was getting knocked down and really just got dominated on the ground against Derek Brunson in every single round he lost in that fight, and the big part of it was those takedowns. And for Vettori, the fact he can strike him down, and also the fact that he's an elite grappler, an elite ground control fighter when he gets a guy down. And just, I don't see Holland, his strong suit has been the significant strikes, and I don't see him landing those strikes against Vettori tomorrow night. So it's just going to come down to, can Vettori get him on the ground, and can he do work once he gets him there? And like I said, that's what Brunson did 3 weeks ago against Holland. I think that's what Vettori is going to do tomorrow night. And if Brunson can take down Holland easily as he did, put him on the ground and dominate him on the ground like he did, I don't think Kevin Holland can fix that here in only 3 weeks. That's a thing that takes years to come back from and to figure out how to get better at. And in my opinion, I don't think that's going to be the case for Kevin Holland. So for Slaw's main card pick'em of the week, again, a 4-4 record. Give me Marvin Vettori, again, by decision or by submission in this fight. That's going to be my pick. And we're going to take a quick break here. And when we come back on the Slaw Sports Show, we'll be welcoming in our guests to the show and talk about some NBA things to get started. But again, just want to start out with Slaw's main card pick'em of the week. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back here on the Slaw Sports Show. All right, and welcome back here to the Slaw Sports Show. Again, I'm your host, Cole Noble, aka Slaw, and now we're going to be welcoming in our guest on the show today, and we have Gray Ost, friend, classmate, lover of sports all around. So welcoming in Gray Ost to the show.
I think you also forgot a very handsome as well, Cole.
Yes, Gray Ost also very handsome as well.
Thank you.
So Gray, what I want to talk about today on the show is going to be starting off with Aaron Rodgers, the new host of Jeopardy. Just finished his first full week as the host of Jeopardy. And the question on everyone's mind right now is Aaron Rodgers going to be the host of Jeopardy full-time, or is Aaron Rodgers going to be a full-time NFL quarterback for the Green Bay Packers?
I mean, I know that you don't want to hear this, but Aaron Rodgers will have a life after football. And, maybe he wants to get started on that. Specifically, being the host of Jeopardy, he's already made his money. And I specifically think that Jeopardy is a good outlet for him. I mean, if he wants to do it now, that's going to be pretty tough to do because he still is the quarterback for the Packers. But I do think it's in the future cards for him. I mean, he's good. He's good with the questions, and he said he prepped a lot for it, which I appreciate. But he's still a little awkward in his delivery. I think that would be like, he can read the cards, but he can't exactly talk to people in between when he's not reading the clues. And so I think he's got some potential. It's like drafting Aaron Rodgers out of college. He's got potential. He just needs some time to develop behind somebody. So I definitely think it's in the future for Aaron Rodgers, just not right now while he's still playing. That would be a logistical nightmare.
Yeah, and I mean, Aaron Rodgers talked about it, on his partner's Instagram live video, but he talked about it's possible for Aaron Rodgers. He said, during the offseason he could have plenty of time to fly out to LA, record, the full, season's worth of Jeopardy, and he can, make it work going forward, being a quarterback and being the full-time host of Jeopardy. So that's obviously in the cards, I think, is being able to do both, and something I want to see going forward, in my opinion. But, I mean, the big question on everyone's mind right now with Aaron Rodgers is not Jeopardy, but it definitely is his future, and obviously the future with the Green Bay Packers. And that's something that is going to be a lot of talk here going into this season. The MVP of the league last year, and, of course, the big talk is Jordan Love, the quarterback that got drafted in the first round last year by the Green Bay Packers, who's set to be the heir apparent as the starting quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. So it's something I'm interested to see, this dynamic of how it works out with the future with the Packers. Rodgers, no guaranteed money into this year. They still, this offseason, have yet to restructure his contract, giving him that guaranteed money. So I'm concerned as a Packers fan of what's going to happen with our future with Aaron Rodgers. Does he stay or does he go? But I think if he leaves and when he retires, he does have this home with Jeopardy.
Definitely, he definitely does have a future, I'd say, in Jeopardy. I mean, again, if you want to go out, I mean, you're retired at 38, so I think that, I mean, he's got his future ahead of him. He's recently got a wife, doesn't he? He's got a wife now.
Yeah, he's with a fiance.
He's got a fiance. I think he can make it work, Jeopardy full time, but we'll see.
And so the next thing is the Masters. That's the big thing going on right now. And before we get to the rest of what we want to talk about, the Masters is happening live. We saw the first day on Thursday, second day today, and the cuts are coming. But today we saw something interesting, Gray. And Siwoo Kim on hole 14, coming down, broke his putter, didn't come down, but putting, missed a putt, and frustration came down and broke the putter. And so let's get the story right. Came down, broke his putter on hole 14, had to play out the last 4 holes putting with his 3-wood. And we've seen it before, but it was just great to see it again here with Siwoo Kim.
And he finished 3 under par on the day while playing those last 4 holes with a 3-wood. Again, let's break that down. That's not like you're chipping with a 5-iron or you're putting with a sand wedge or something like that. That is a 3-wood. That is something you take off the tee box. But I mean, he's in great position. He's tied for 6th. He was 3 under on the day. He's 4 under total. He's only 3 shots off the lead, and he couldn't switch the putter. But now he can go back and get another putter. But I mean, think about it. If he makes that putt, maybe he's 5 under, and so maybe he's tied for 4th along with Leishman and Spieth. But I mean, Kim definitely getting it done. I mean, you got to respect the tenacity, just breaking the putter. You got to love it. Will he catch Justin Rose? No one's caught him for 2 days. That's the main question, really, whether he's going to catch him or really anybody else. It's down to a one-stroke lead, but Justin Rose, the definitive favorite after 2 days.
Yeah, and, Justin Rose in a good spot right now going into the final 2 days of the Masters. And Jordan Spieth is trying to catch up to him, but it's looking like, Rose has got a commanding spot right now going into the weekend. We'll see how he can hold up with that going forward through the rest of the tournament. And, again, just the frustration with Kim. Those of us who golf, we get it.
We know your frustration.
We understand the frustration. And, I haven't got around to breaking a putter yet, but couple more bad shots on the green, couple more 3-putts, we could get to that point. So now, Gray, let's move on from the Masters, move on from Aaron Rodgers and Jeopardy, and go to the NBA. And this is something that, we planned on talking about on One-on-One Sports. Unfortunately, got canceled this week, but now here on the Slaw Sports Show, we'll bring it back up. And in the NBA world and on ESPN this week, we saw an article come out, the top 25 players based on potential under the age of 25. And on this list, we saw guys, of course, like Luka Doncic, Zion Williamson, LaMelo Ball, Lonzo Ball even, and 3 of the Phoenix Suns players. And Gray, as a Phoenix Suns player, we saw DeAndre Ayton at 20, we saw Bridges at 17, and Devin Booker at 8. What's going on with that?
But I'm going to get on my soapbox here, so if you'll just hand me this microphone. Devin Booker at 8. Okay. 2-time All-Star. He will be All-NBA this year. He should be in the MVP conversation. Where is he? I don't know. Maybe he has geography bias or something like that. But he's 8 in here. Let me just read you how ludicrous this is. And ESPN's trying to save themselves from shooting themselves in the foot by saying, ranking young stars by future potential. Really? You're saying that LaMelo Ball is going to be that much better than... Here, let's read who's after LaMelo Ball. Let's see if these names ring a bell to you. Donovan Mitchell, Jason Tatum, De'Aaron Fox, Ben Simmons, and Devin Booker. 4 of those 5 players have been All-Stars. Devin Booker is a multiple-time All-Star. Ben Simmons, multiple-time All-Star. Jason Tatum is the face of the Celtics, who are a top 3 team in the East. And Donovan Mitchell, who should also be in the MVP race. This is baffling to me that Donovan Mitchell and Devin Booker just complete disrespect on their heads right now. And you're saying, again, LaMelo Ball, he's a great young talent. He could win Rookie of the Year if he had not, broken his wrist and been on the sidelines for the rest of the year. Because Charlotte's, they're going to be a playoff team, and he's going to win Rookie of the Year, or he would have won Rookie of the Year, but Anthony Edwards is probably going to run away with that award. But again, just the disrespect on Donovan Mitchell and Devin Booker specifically. What else does Devin Booker have to do? There was a 3-game stretch during these last 2 weeks where he was averaging over 30 points a game, over 5 rebounds, and over 4 assists a game. His team is the second best in the Western Conference and just beat the Utah Jazz, who have the best record in the NBA. Suns, again, people laughed at us. This is also a Suns soapbox. They laughed at us, okay? Now we're second in the NBA thanks to, who also should be in the MVP conversation, a man by the name of Chris Paul, who basically turns, water into wine wherever he goes. And then, okay, here, another tangent right here. Another tangent with this ludicrousy of a list. You're telling me that Michael Porter Jr., okay? Michael Porter Jr., right? He has barely played in his NBA career. He played his first NBA action in the bubble last season. You're telling me that he has a better future than Ja Morant, who won Rookie of the Year last year and is one of the top 10 point guards in the NBA, in my opinion. Oh, look, there's another great point guard named Trae Young, who has also been an all-star that Michael Porter Jr. is ahead of. And like we said, Mikal Bridges, who is a very sneaky good 3-and-D player. Oh, another name, Domantas Sabonis, who I believe was another all-star this year. And then there's Anthony Edwards. Again, I can't... Okay, I can accept Anthony Edwards being at 19. I think he'll be a great player. Not with the Timberwolves, but I think he'll be a great player. DeAndre Ayton, again, mad disrespect. He's averaging, like this article says, he's averaging a career-low 14.5 points per game, but he's only shooting 10 shots a game, and half of those are alley-oops from Chris Paul. And he's shooting over 60% from the field, and he's averaging a double-double. And has a career-high 115.8 offensive rating. So he's not taking bad shots. Very efficient shots and scoring, and he's playing his role. Again, tremendously underrated. Tyrese Halliburton having a phenomenal rookie season, dropped down to 12th in the draft. So I can respect him being on this list, being this low. John Collins, still getting major disrespect. Colin Sexton, major disrespect as well. And it's just, I can understand if you want to talk about future potential, but don't take age so much in this because we don't know what could happen. I say take the proven guys at the top of your list who have the potential to, be MVPs or All-NBA or All-Stars. Because, again, Brandon Ingram was 11th. He was an All-Star. Jaylen Brown, All-Star. Jamal Murray, All-Star. Those guys are all not in the top 10. When you have players like De'Aaron Fox, who is very good, and I bite my tongue on this, he's very good, but he plays for the Kings.
Yeah.
Okay. He's getting no love, which is kind of warranted because he's not going to play for a winner, and so as soon as he gets out of Sacramento, he'll get a little more respect. But again, Jason Tatum, he's only 23, and I can respect Zion being at number 2, but I just don't see him having that successful an NBA career. He's playing great right now in his first 2 years, but a man that big cannot jump high for that long.
Yeah, a guy like Zion, the way he's built, the way he plays, it's not sustainable. And so this whole list is about potential of the player, not how they are right now. So Zion Williamson, I can see, the issues there with him being at 2 because, again, what's the longevity of this guy's career going to be going forward in the NBA? So if you had to rework, say, the top 5, what would that look like? And then I'll give my takes on my top 5.
Okay, so I'm a little more of an elder bias because, again, players like Zion, who's not even 21 yet, LaMelo Ball's not even 20, he's still a teenager, I still don't give them that high of a ranking. I think Zion's in the top 10, but he's not number 2. LaMelo Ball needs to be in that teen range because, again, we've only seen him for half a season, and he didn't start specifically at the beginning of the season. Then he came into that starting lineup and played very well. But so I think he goes, near the teens. But if I was to rework it based on, futures in the NBA, I still think you take Luka Doncic number 1 because he's in the MVP conversation. He was last year, and he is this year. He's averaging almost 29 points a game, 8 rebounds, and almost 9 assists.
Yeah.
So I definitely think Luka Doncic deserves to be at the top of this list. And then number 2, I'm going to go Jason Tatum because Jason Tatum is the face of the Boston Celtics. He's going to be an All-NBA player again, multiple-time All-Star. I think he has the potential to be in that MVP conversation if he can keep working it. If the Celtics had another piece, maybe he would be a little bit higher because he could have that, NBA champion on his chest. But I think I'd put Tatum at number 2. But I gotta say, number 3, I'm gonna go Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell is an amazing player and still gets mad disrespect. The Jazz and the Suns are still getting mad disrespect for no reason. They have the 2 best records in the NBA.
Exactly.
They're most likely going to be the 1 and 2 seeds in the Western Conference. And so I think you give Donovan Mitchell, you give him that 3 spot because he's having a phenomenal season. He's the best scorer, the best player on the best team in the NBA, and he's still less than 25 years old.
Yep. Preach it to him, Greg. Preach it to him.
Thank you. And so I put Donovan Mitchell at 3. At number 4, I'm going to go Devin Booker, and that's not Suns biased or anything like that. I think Devin Booker is legitimately a top 15 player in the NBA because he's just been consistent for so long. I read a stat the other day, and it was players who averaged 25, 5, and 5, and I believe it was 25, 5, and 5, and they were less than 23. Yeah. And there were 3 names on the list and Devin Booker. And it was Tracy McGrady, LeBron James, and Michael Jordan. And so Devin Booker is already in elite company. And so I think that because the Suns are a lot better, he should be higher on this list because he's, again, the best player on the second best team in the NBA right now. And number 5 to round out the list, I got to go Ben Simmons.
Oh.
I think if he had a jump shot, he'd be a little bit higher. But again, one of the best players on the best team. I think he's 5 because he's not the best player on his team right now. That's obviously Joel Embiid, who's still, I think, in the MVP conversation. But I do think Ben Simmons is a fantastic player. He's basically what we thought the future of the NBA was going to be with, the big guard, 6'10" point guards, dunking everywhere. And if he had a jump shot, again, he'd be higher, and the 76ers would probably be better. But he needs to work on his defense, I think. Again, he's still got potential. He's still under 25 years old. And so I definitely think Ben Simmons should be number 5 on my list. And if I was to do like maybe a 5A or like maybe like a 6, if you'd let me, I'd probably go Brandon Ingram. Because Brandon Ingram, since he has gotten to New Orleans, has been fantastic. Again, all-star, and he still hasn't turned 24 yet. So Brandon Ingram still has all that room to grow.
Yeah. Okay, so now look at my top 5, and I've reworked it here, just looking at it. But number 1, I agree with you. You got to go Luka Doncic, a guy who last year was in the MVP conversations. Before the year started, he was the Vegas favorite to win the MVP this year, and he's got 28.6 points per game right now, just leading the Dallas Mavericks again. Like he's been doing since he came into the league, basically 48.8% from the field, 37.1% from 3. Some of the best numbers he's had in his career. This guy's in line for probably an over $200 million extension this offseason with the Dallas Mavericks. So I think he's an easy pick to be number 1, players with the most potential. Number 2, I got to give it to Donovan Mitchell for the Utah Jazz. Just, again, what he's doing. He's, like you said, with Devin Booker. Same thing with Donovan Mitchell, leading scorer on the best team in the NBA right now. And it's looking like his career is just going to keep going up. And the way that, the Jazz are playing right now, they're looking like a team that, like you said, could be number 1 in the Western Conference this year and keep things rolling for years to come and just build this team over there in Utah. And, he's also shooting career-high numbers right now, 40% on his three-pointers so far this season. So, year after year, he's getting better as well. Number 3, I'll go with your guy Devin Booker from the Phoenix Suns. I'm really high on him. I'm like a lot of people.
Because no one is high on Devin Booker or the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, no one's high on Devin Booker, but I'm high. I'll put him at 3. The guy's scored 30 plus in 13 straight games, so he's efficient, he's consistent, and at that young of an age, those two things, just efficiency and consistency, is what makes you great in this league. So he's going to continue doing that. He's got 109.2 defensive rating right now this season, second best in his career. He's just continuing to be great going forward. And number 4, I guess I'll go Jason Tatum. It's a guy that I'm not too high on compared to a lot of people. But Jason Tatum, he does it all for Boston. He is the guy there. 30% usage rate on offense, scoring 25 points per game. And when you look at his numbers through his career so far, he's taken every step forward. This guy's yet to take a step back in his young career, and he's moving things along in the right direction. And at number 5, it's the guy we just talked about, but I think if it's sustainable, Zion Williamson is going to have a great career. So if it's sustained, through his whole career, I would say give me Zion Williamson as a top 5 player under 25 in terms of potential if he can keep things rolling. The guy's just, so far he had 0 games in March under 20 points, and his first game under 20 points came the last game against the Brooklyn Nets back on Wednesday. He scored 16 in that one, but the way he is, the way how dominant he plays, if it's sustained, it's going to be great, and it's going to be fun to watch. But I also like your other pick on the same team with Brandon Ingram. I think that would be my 6th pick to come in potentially at the top 5 as well.
And I give Zion Williamson some flack, and then he goes out and beats the best team in the Eastern Conference and drops 37, 15, and 8.
Yeah.
So, if he had a little bit of a jump shot, which apparently he's proving that he doesn't need, he's probably the only player at his position who doesn't need a jump shot. But, Zion, if he can hold it up, more power to him, but I just don't think he can. And if you're going on potential, I could see that in his future, to where he just kind of falls off the table a little bit.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And just going back to this ESPN list, these guys are experts making this list?
No.
They
cannot.
LaMelo Ball in the top 3. No.
And again,
no.
They're putting too much into age and about how much you can grow over a season. Again, I can understand that if you want to put potential ahead of what they've done in the past, but they did it far too much. So I think John Collins is getting a little bit of a disrespect here, and that's not me, with the Wake Forest bias or whatever. But John Collins is still 23, and he's averaged basically 20 points and 8 to 9 rebounds his entire career. And I think if he gets out of Atlanta, he's going to have a lot more success because Clint Capela's basically taken up 4 of his rebounds and a few of his points. So I think John Collins has a lot of room to grow. I don't know why Lonzo Ball is on this list. I can see why LaMelo Ball is on it. I don't know why Lonzo Ball is on this list. He's shooting a lot better from 3, but what else has he done? He hasn't done anything significant this season.
Yeah, and has he showed growth year after year? And to me, with potential with young guys, you want to see continued growth year after year.
I'm not seeing I don't see it.
Lonzo hasn't done that.
He's only averaging 14 points a game, 4 rebounds, 5 assists.
Yeah.
94th PER in the NBA, which, I mean, is he in a better spot than he was in LA? Yes. But I just don't think he can get it done. I think he's going to get outshined by his brother because his brother, in his rookie year, is putting up better numbers than Lonzo. So I definitely think LaMelo Ball is the better brother, and I don't think Lonzo should be on this list. But, again, what do I know? These are the experts. What do we know?
And I also think another underrated player that was ranked too low, in my opinion, on this list is Trae Young with the Atlanta Hawks because he's shown growth. He's shown the potential. And looking at what the Hawks are doing right now this season, going in line for a playoff, could even get a playoff win this year. And Trae Young has been a huge part of that, and he's been the focal point of this team. And if they continue this sustained success and keep having off seasons like they did this past off season, bringing in the talent they need surrounding Trae Young, he's going to be a lot higher on this list than they have him right now.
And especially because the Hawks are getting a lot better. The Hawks are playing so well right now. Recently beating the Bulls, I think it was either today or it was yesterday, but he put up 42, 8, and 9, and they've won 4 of their last 5 games against some pretty good competition. And so I think, Trae Young averaging 25 points a game, that's top 20 in the NBA. 9.5 assists, that's third, and he's 22nd in PER. He's one of the best all-around players, and the argument that could be made with him is he's better than the 16th best player in the NBA, not just under 25 on future potential.
Yeah.
And so, I'm guessing how they did the list was if you can go 1, 2, 3, those are future MVPs in the league. That's what I'm saying, which is why I think they put, Doncic higher because he's going to get an MVP faster. But, they basically just lumped in all the All-Stars under 25 from 4 to about 9. They just said, here's the All-Stars that we've seen pretty productive and still have room to grow.
Yeah.
And so I don't agree with it. I think that we should basically go with my list because I am awesome. But, also Bam Adebayo having a great season with the Heat as well. Just got to put that in there.
Yeah, and he's a guy that, I thought they had him ranked pretty
evenly. It's pretty fair.
He's in a great spot for what he's done and his potential going forward. So you look at the standings in the NBA as a whole, and we'll just segue out of this debate because we can go on and on about this one with this bogus
garbage.
ESPN ranking. Yeah. So looking at the standings in the NBA. We'll start with the Eastern Conference and just top 5 for each conference. But the Brooklyn Nets still leading the way. 76ers coming up behind them. And then the Milwaukee Bucks, Charlotte Hornets still at 4, and the Atlanta Hawks at 5. And the Hawks I just talked about. So the Brooklyn Nets, everyone's talked about them. Just the big.
They're the Monstars.
Yeah, they're building the super team right now, and rightfully so, they're sitting in first place in the Eastern Conference. So looking throughout the rest of the season, which team's going to stand out and challenge the Brooklyn Nets out of the Eastern Conference?
I know you want me to say the Milwaukee Bucks.
Come on, Gray, you can say it.
I'm not going to say the Milwaukee Bucks.
Come on.
The Bucks can't win on the road. That's been the problem for them the past 2 seasons, besides Giannis not still having a jump shot and basically the team's center basically posting up 15 feet away from him. But the Bucks are only 14-12 on the road, and that's how I judge teams based on how far they can go in the playoffs, is if they can win those tough games on the road. And so far, the Bucks have not done that. And with the Eastern Conference as a whole, it's a 3-team race right now. It's the Nets, the Sixers, and the Bucks. So if it ain't the Bucks, it's going to be the Sixers, because the Brooklyn Nets have a glaring flaw, and it's called interior defense.
Yeah.
DeAndre Jordan is not as good as he once was. Again, he is a former All-Star. Blake Griffin, not who he was, 5 years ago. Same thing with LaMarcus Aldridge. LaMarcus Aldridge is at the end of his Trailblazers career and at the end of his Spurs career was a definitive All-Star and All-NBA player. He's not that anymore. So he's a big name, but he's still going to come off the bench for you. And so, he's going to give you good production, but don't expect him to, be great. And so I definitely think it's going to be the Philadelphia 76ers, specifically when they get Joel Embiid back to where he was before he got hurt.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
And he's only 1 game out. they're only one game out behind the Brooklyn Nets right now.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you look at what he did to the Celtics also don't have any interior defense, and he dropped 35 on them in a 10-point win. And so I definitely think that if the Sixers can play their cards right, they could end up with that number 1 seed specifically, because again, they're only a game behind the Nets, and there's only about, I'd say 15, 20 games left in the season, and they have a pretty easy road.
Yeah.
Because, they're going to play the Thunder, they're going to play Dallas. I mean, granted, they're going to play Brooklyn and Milwaukee, but other than that, no one on their, you could argue that no one on their schedule is better than they are. And so I think that the 76ers have a legitimate shot. But ever since Kawhi hit that shot, in the playoffs in Game 7, they haven't been the same. But I think definitely Philly could challenge the Nets.
Yeah, and you look at the drop off after these top 3 teams, the Bucks, the Sixers, and the Nets.
It's ugly.
It's ugly. I mean, the Bucks at 32-19, then it drops to 26-24 to the Charlotte Hornets in the Eastern Conference. So it is between these 3 teams, and I'd have to agree with you. The Sixers has what it takes to exploit that weakness inside against the Brooklyn Nets, and if there's a team that can challenge them, unfortunately, it won't be the Milwaukee Bucks. It would have to be the 76ers. But for the Western Conference, and this is where things get interesting with our Phoenix Suns superfan.
Woohoo!
But leading the way is the Utah Jazz, followed by the Phoenix Suns, right on their heels, heating up the right time again. And then the LA Clippers, the Denver Nuggets, and trying to survive right now is the LA Lakers at 5. And, how's it looking right now in the Western Conference? And Suns bias included aside, what are we looking here? Who's going to challenge the Utah Jazz right now?
Well, again, I think you took the words right out of my mouth. It's going to be the Suns, because the Suns are the best. They're the best road team in the NBA, and the Jazz are the best home team. And so it's a very interesting playoff matchup if it gets that far. But because you don't want me to say the Phoenix Suns, because I could go on for days about them, I'm going to say, I got to say the LA Clippers. The LA Clippers are better than the Lakers right now. But again, once AD and LeBron come back, that's a whole different ball game.
Yeah,
but right now, as it stands, it would be the LA Clippers, because they have Paul George, and Paul George got a ton of flack last year for how he played in the bubble, which was just underwhelming to say the least. But he played fantastic last night against the Suns, dropping over 30 points. You have Kawhi Leonard, who's still, I think, the best defensive player in the NBA.
Yeah,
they
sure.
have muscle down low. And so I just definitely think that the Clippers could get it done, because, I mean, they just signed DeMarcus Cousins as well. And so DeMarcus Cousins gives you some oomph off the bench, if you will. They have Serge Ibaka, who was a member of a championship team. Ibaka Zubac as well gives you some stuff down low. And then you've got Marcus Morris at power forward, as well as Nick Batum. So you have lanky defenders, basically, who can get buckets. And that length is going to provide a challenge to the Utah Jazz, because you have Rudy Gobert, who's going to give you stuff inside, but he's not going to be a guy that's going to post you up and give you a dream shake or two. And you have wing defenders like Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and Marcus Morris, who can defend on the wing. If you stick a 6'8 Paul George or a 6'8 Kawhi Leonard on a 6'4 Donovan Mitchell, that's just a big problem for them. And no one really for the Jazz, besides Mitchell, can straight up just go get a bucket.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there. And I think the big thing out of the Western Conference is going to be the return of Anthony Davis and LeBron James, of course. And can the Lakers survive until then? That's what's going to have to wait to see with that one. But I'm liking the Suns. They're heating up.
As you should like the Suns.
More people should like the Suns. But we're going to segue here now out of the NBA gray and go over to the MLB, because we've had over a full week now of baseball. Baseball's continuing. Shohei Ohtani's still mashing home runs, home runs. Mike Trout coming in right behind him, still hitting. So they're my favorite team to watch right now. As a Red Sox fan, the Red Sox are getting better, but not
still early.
Still way early. So I know we're gonna crash and burn very quickly. So I'm liking the Angels right now. But the MLB, so today, the LA Dodgers unveiled and gave out their World Series rings, had their World Series celebration. And so far, what we've seen through the first week, is it looking like the Dodgers are going to repeat again as World Series champions? Or is there a team out there that can challenge them this season?
Definitely think that there is a team that can challenge them, but it's not in the MLB. It'd be the Monstars, if they came off Moron Mountain and, took all of the major league talent out of it, because there's no one in the NL, and, sorry to all Phillies fans and Mets fans and Reds fans and Cardinals fans, but there's no one in the NL that's going to challenge the Dodgers.
Yeah.
The Padres, again, early in the season, but they have been underwhelming. Tatis had a pretty scary injury. It turned out to just be a separated shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think the LA Dodgers are the team to beat, because, when you add a Cy Young award-winning pitcher at a position that wasn't even a need for them, they already had Kershaw and Walker Buehler and Gonsolin. Now you add Trevor Bauer, so that's 4 starters that are all-star caliber, and 2 of which have won a Cy Young, and 1 has won an MVP. And so they have the best pitching staff in the NL. Again, sorry to, the Padres fans who think they have the best starting rotation in baseball. It's still the Dodgers.
Yeah.
And the Dodgers, again, when you have a lineup, with Max Muncy and Mookie Betts and Bellinger, that's just a dangerous combination, and I don't think anybody in the NL can match it.
Yeah, and I think the only one in the entire MLB with that 3-man rotation that can even match that. Again, the Angels. With Shohei Ohtani, Mike Trout, and then Anthony Rendon right there as their 3-man rotation. But even that isn't enough, I think, to match the Dodgers. So I think a team that could, and I talked about it last week, potentially challenge and rival the Dodgers for the World Series this year. And again, it all depends on health, and that's going to be the New York Yankees.
Definitely the New York Yankees have the potential. It's just whether they can put the bat on the ball. That is their main problem. They are the home run hitters. They're the Bronx Bombers, which they've been known for forever. But I just don't think they have that consistency to do it.
Mm-hmm. And, injuries is always the main thing. I think it's not just putting the bat on the ball for the Yankees. It's going to be the injuries. Can they keep Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton healthy, and these guys, in their lineup and, of course, in their rotation? Are those guys going to stay healthy for a full season? I don't think I've ever seen it happen in a full season. But speaking of the AL East, Gray, let's go ahead and have a little celebration here, because the O's and the Red Sox right now are currently leading the American League, the AL East, and 4-3, very early.
7 games in.
7 games in. Let's celebrate while we have it. Red Sox and O's there at 4-3 in the AL East. So another issue that we saw yesterday in the MLB on Thursday, the New York Mets walked off on a hit by pitch with Conforto, and the ball didn't hit him.
I don't care how many replays I see, that ball did not hit him, and it was a strike.
Mm-hmm.
That was my main issue, was a strike on that high inside corner, and he dipped his elbow just a little bit, and you could see that ball just didn't hit him, and it should not have been a win for the New York Mets.
Yeah, they kept playing the replay over and over again, slow-mo, frame by frame, how many times we have to see it. The ball never touched him. And I know the Marlins have to be mad. They end up losing the game, of course, on the walk-off, hit by pitch, 3-2, and that's just baseball, I guess. That's just the things you're going to see, and there's always, every week has one of these games where you're like, oh, okay, that's how it's going to end, and
It's like, really?
Yeah,
really.
That's what drives me away from the MLB, and all the loyal followers of the Slaw Sports Show know that to be the case. But again, just out of the first week of the season, Gray, how are we feeling about how the MLB season is going to look this year?
Well, I'm feeling great because the Orioles are sitting at 4-3 and tied for first place in the MLB.
With the Boston Red Sox, that's right.
Because again, we were expecting failure, and we're sitting at the top after 1 week, which is fine by me. But I definitely think, again, this is going to be a little bit of Orioles bias, but a player that is not getting the proper love that he deserves is Cedric Mullins right now, who's the center fielder for the Baltimore Orioles, and he is just putting up fantastic numbers. He had the best average in the MLB at one time. He ended that Red Sox series going 5 for 5. And I just think he's not getting a lot of respect. The Orioles, they have some good prospects. Again, Cedric Mullins batting currently .448 with, let's see here, 13 hits and 29 plate appearances. So he's playing very well right now in that leadoff position. And again, as long as the Orioles can stay on top, as long as they can, I'm just going to sit here just licking my chops, being like, okay, We got people coming up. Brian Mountcastle, another one. But again, the team that you picked is in the Los Angeles Angels. I've been amazed at how well Shohei Ohtani has been.
Mm-hmm.
He's been, fantastic. And I made this proposition earlier, and I want to hear if you agree with me.
Okay.
The Angels stop having Ohtani be a starting pitcher, and you put him in 7 innings as a hitter. And if you're in a good position, you put him in at closer.
Yeah, and I think the amount of he's playing and he's had injury troubles in the past, and we already had one little scare this season. I think that'd be great for him, not pitching, so often as he is being a starter. And if he comes in and relieves some games and continues batting, and then comes in relief, he's still gonna be pumping 100 plus like he is as a starting pitcher, and that's gonna be that's gonna help him more sustain it for a shorter amount of innings. And just the concern I do have is how it's going to work with the Angels in their starting rotation. Taking Ohtani out and moving him back into the pen and having him come in relief is my one main concern with that. But I can see I can see why you think that. I mean, Ohtani pumping 100 out of the pen in the 5th or the 6th or the 7th is going to be great, and you still have him in the lineup hitting right above Mike Trout, smashing home runs like he is. So I think it could be something that could work out, and I also think it'd be something that could work out with Ohtani and keeping him healthy and keeping him injury free as we go throughout the season.
And I do think the one thing though with that situation that I brought up is Ohtani again. He's one of the best starting pitchers that they have in a rotation that's not that deep.
Yeah, that's my point exactly.
Exactly. Because you're not going to get by. You're not going to get to a World Series if you got Jose Quintana, Griffin Canning, and Alex Cobb at the back of your rotation. You need somebody else like a Shohei Ohtani, because Bundy and Haney are going to be fine.
Yeah.
They're good players. But I think, Quintana's past his prime. Griffin Canning hasn't proven enough yet, and Alex Cobb is also past his prime. And the bullpen, also, not that great. Steve Cishek, who is defying father time at the moment, and Raciel Iglesias coming over from the Reds is a good pickup. I just don't think the Angels have the pitching to do it. But, if they could get somebody, bring up some prospects or try and trade near the deadline if they're still in good contention, say with the Astros, because that's going to be a 2-horse race right there in that AL West for that playoff spot. It's going to be the Angels and the Astros because they're already showing great form, and the Rangers, the Mariners, and the A's have been poor this year. So I definitely think that the Angels could get some pitching. Then they're a legitimate ALCS, maybe World Series contender.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you with pretty much everything you just said there. So 10 minutes to go here, just on this episode of the Slaw Sports Show. So let's segue out of the MLB, and for the final 10 minutes, go to the NFL. This might be the least amount of time we've ever talked about the NFL on the Slaw Sports Show, but it's been great. So NFL, we talked about it, here on the channel, but at the beginning of the week, Sam Darnold of the New York Jets has been traded to the Carolina Panthers as their new quarterback, we think, for the 2021 season and beyond. But the Panthers still sitting at 8. A lot of decisions can be made at that 8th overall pick. If a quarterback starts to slide to 8, if I'm the Panthers, I still don't rule it out. If Justin Fields or Trey Lance is available, or even Mac Jones available to you at 8, you take it, be safe, and just have a guy in there in case Sammy doesn't work out. But Sam Darnold was traded for 2021 third and a 2022 second and a fourth, I believe. So the Jets get a great deal back in exchange for Sam Darnold. Got pretty much what they were looking for in that one. And then the Panthers go out during the week, and they also signed A.J. Boye at corner to go back alongside Dante Jackson. So sitting at 8, that's what I thought was the window. The 8 to 12 range is where some of these top corners are going to fall off the board. But the Panthers elect to go instead with A.J. Boye, which furthers my narrative that at the 8th overall pick, the Panthers are going to select either Penei Sewell out of Oregon to be, just further build that offensive line around now Sam Darnold, or instead you add a playmaker weapon in a Devonta Smith or a Jalen Waddle, and just further rounding out that wide receiver room with Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore. So, Gray, I want to get your thoughts just on this trade and what the Panthers are looking like they're going to do at the 8th overall pick.
I'm just very happy for Sam Darnold because now he gets to be with an actual organization that knows how to play and manage football. Sorry, New York Jets fans. But, I think this just solidifies the fact that the Jets are, going to go quarterback. They're going to most likely take Zach Wilson, who is the player I'm predicting that they will go with. But with the Panthers specifically, that's the age-old question. I don't think they would, trade, capital for him if they weren't going to give him a shot and they didn't feel like they could get a quarterback of that caliber. Because I feel that they don't think that Fields, Lance, they definitely know that Trevor Lawrence is going to be... He's not going to be there. He's going to go number one.
Yeah,
Trevor Lawrence is going to go.
gone. Yeah.
But they know Zach Wilson's not going to be there. They know Trey Lance is not going to be there. And they know Fields isn't going to be there.
Yeah.
So they're trying to trade for a young quarterback who they didn't have to give up a lot for. It's a great move by the Panthers because, again, we haven't seen Darnold really in a great situation his entire career. But I definitely think that, they go with a playmaker or they go with, like what you said, a Penei Sewell or maybe a Rashawn Slater.
Yes, exactly.
And, get somebody to protect him or get him another weapon because, again, like you said, DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, and then a player like Jalen Waddle, or if Devontae Smith, if he falls, then you can get another player like him. And then you pair him with Christian McCaffrey, and that offense is going to look lethal with that defense that they had, or that they built around last year in the draft. And so I definitely think the Panthers improved significantly, because I don't think that head coach Matt Rule wanted specifically to go into another season with a rookie quarterback. Because, again, Panthers had a pretty underwhelming season last year with the talent that they brought in. But I think if you get another year of that defense and then you can add another playmaker, I think the Panthers, definitely just pantsed the New York Jets on this trade.
Yeah, and what this tells me from the New York Jets is that they're committed. They're committed to a rookie quarterback. They're committed to the future, and they're committed to moving on. They reset the quarterback clock they have on their organization. And the way I look at it, it's a lock. I think Zach Wilson is 100% going to the New York Jets at number 2 overall. I don't think it's going to be anybody else. The talk around everything centered around the Jets the last few weeks and, the last month especially has been Zach Wilson. They make this trade. I think it's official now. But the other thing with the Panthers, I think that's interesting, and it's another side you have to look at it with this trade. So you talk about the logistics behind it. Maybe you brought up they didn't think a quarterback would fall to 8. What if it's more along the lines of they evaluated those quarterbacks and they felt like Sam Darnold was better than what they could get in the draft this year? Because there's some experts out there that have said, I think Mel Kiper was the one who said, where do you rank Sam Darnold if he was in this year's class? And he said 3rd behind Zach Wilson and behind Trevor Lawrence. So if that's the case, and if that's what the Panthers could also feel that way and feel like Sam Darnold just is better than the quarterbacks that could be available to him at 8. But I think that's an interesting scenario, and it's over now, and it happened. And I'm excited to see Sam Darnold outside the Jets organization, and with an offensive mastermind calling his plays that Joe Brady is. That's not, thankfully, Adam Gase calling the plays for Sam Darnold. We're really going to see the potential of Sam Darnold come through, and if not, the Panthers can just readdress it next offseason and look towards getting a veteran. And whichever one becomes available, Russell Wilson might become available again next year. So it's a low risk with a lot of potential, high reward for the Carolina Panthers, in my opinion. And now they can address the 8th overall pick, a top 10 pick, to the rest of their team and just build up, the rest of their roster. And just the other thing I want to mention, so upcoming this week ahead on the 14th, we have Justin Fields' second pro day. And then the week after, on the 19th, we have Trey Lance's second pro day with North Dakota State. And Trey Lance in his first pro day threw 66 passes, completed 58 of them. So a good showcase here for Justin Fields, because you look back to his first pro day, was Mac Jones' second pro day with Alabama. And the 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan and GM John Lynch, didn't go to Ohio State's pro day, and instead went to Alabama's and watched Mac Jones. So now they're in line to look at Justin Fields here next week, and they have that option continue to build at the number 3 overall pick, and of course with Trey Lance as well going forward. So the draft, I would say, starts at 3, but we know it's a quarterback, so in my opinion, it starts at 4.
And I think that, this is the draft, because we haven't seen 3 quarterbacks taken 1, 2, 3 since 1999. Which is before either of our times.
Yeah.
I think the first 4 go with quarterbacks based on which one is there.
And do you think it's going to be Atlanta, or do you see a trade there at number 4?
I see Atlanta.
Okay.
Because, again, you have an Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre situation where you still have 2 years of Matt Ryan left, but ever since the 28-3 blown lead, Matt Ryan just hasn't been the same, and the Falcons haven't been the same. And we saw them last year blowing every lead they looked at. And so I think, if a Justin Fields or a Trey Lance is there, specifically Justin Fields, I'm very high on Justin Fields. I think he's got, great size, great arm strength. He's got unbelievable athleticism. If you pair him, with a Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley, you can make something happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if it's Trey Lance, then they're going to trade out.
Yeah.
And so I think if the number 3 pick comes along and they select Trey Lance, then I think they take Justin Fields. But if Justin Fields goes 3, then I think they trade out of there.
Okay. And we'll have plenty of time to talk about this, Gray, because going forward, looking to April 29th, Thursday, draft night. The NFL kicks off the first round that night, and we will cover it live here on the Slaw Sports Show with Gray Ost being our commissioner and Matt Laguza joining me on the analyst live for our NFL first round analysis breakdown. We'll be here to cover it. So look forward to that as well. But for the Slaw Sports Show, Gray, that's all we have for this week's episode. We're here wrapping up the hour. So thank you all for joining. Those who joined on YouTube and checked out the Slaw Sports Show on there. Thank you for listening on WSOE 89.3 as well. Slaw Sports Show will be posted on Anchor.fm, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you get a podcast, just at the Slaw Sports Show. So thank you all for listening. Again, Slaw's main card pick'em of the week. We're taking Marvin Viteri by either decision or submission. Hope to improve to 5-4 on Slaw's main card pick'em of the week. But that's all we have. Thank you for joining, and until next time, peace.